That's with some list items that the user wouldn't have access to. You can run in that context. So it's very clear about what security context am I running under, and it gives you very good over when I want to run under a higher privilege. And because it's not running as like the system account, it's not overboard privileges. It's not just fun, crazy writes. So that's a little more secure. And you can also import out-of-the-box workflows for customization. So a Google workflow does 95% of what you want it to do, but you need to tweak it just a little bit. Aside from just the configuration that you could do, when you're just using the out-of-the-box workflow, you could just import it and tweak the settings. So that's nice. And you can really do that with any workflow, any other declarative workflow. And I should use, let me point out that term declarative. So Visio workflows, which really are SharePoint Designer workflows, are declarative, meaning they weren't written in code. So declarative workflows are the ones where you get the visualizations. Declarative workflows are the ones that you can do customizations on. So you could not import a Visual Studio workflow into Designer, because Designer wouldn't know what to do with it, because there's extra code and other stuff, and Designer would throw up. So, and now I will show you, that's a technical term. All right, let's pop open Designer. I'll start off by showing you, gosh, and there's so much things about Designer I didn't even mention, like the ability to customize forms, to create custom task forms using InfoPath. It will generate a lot of forms for you. You'll spend, if I want to collect data from a user, I want to collect maybe their birth date and their social security number, or some other not so sensitive piece of data. It will generate for me, and it will show me in Designer, here's your form, but then I can just double click it, open it in InfoPath, and make it look like whatever I want. It's really, 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 really nice. So you use all that up, and then so I'm going to go ahead and open the site, which is just here on my machine.
I've got a question. You were talking about the collecting data. Is that there's a collect data activity?
Yes, sir.
Is what you just talked about a replacement for that in
It's actually called the same thing. It's called collect data from user. Yeah.
But it actually works?
Yeah.
Okay.
It actually works.
How about that?
And we can even look at it.
Cool.
So as you can see in Designer, I have my nice snazzy ribbon. I can go to workflows, and here's what I've created in the past. I'm going to go ahead and create a reusable workflow. And I don't know, call this our new hire workflow. It's a very popular workflow that people like to do. I'll just go ahead and allow this to go on the document content type. So I can do that. Like if I had a content type called resumes, I could say only allow this to run on resumes, which might make sense for a new hire type workflow. Or I can just be unrestricted and allowed to go anywhere. So here's my blank canvas. You know what, let me go ahead real quick before I forget. I'm going to leave this one open. I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to import from Visio just to show you so I don't forget what we did a minute ago. And import, there's my VWI desktop. Double click that, next. I don't really worry about naming it too much. I'm going to make it a reusable workflow on any content type. You can see here that here's that approval thing I dragged on in Visio. Here's my if diamond that I dragged on. And here's, really else, and there's email. So remember, this was my no path in Visio, where I said I wanted to email someone. And look, you can see that these blue links mean I have to do something. I have to click those and configure. You can see this kind of reads, they try to make it read, so start a workflow. If the something value equals that, then do this, else email these users. So it's visual coding. And you can see these comments that I typed in are still visible. So that's some useful information from the person who did the Visio. That's the messaging to me on what this is to do. So I can start clicking these things. So this is that approval process. Let's talk about this guy, because this is one of the most powerful things in Designer 2010 workflow. This approval process. Let me go back one screen. Where I could have gotten that from this action. So So here's all my actions. This is my toolbox per se. And there's the collect data from user. There's task actions. This is start approval process. So this is clicking this produces right here. So I'm basically starting approval process on this item with these users. So I click this, and I get this whole other UI. And it's kind of disorienting, I know, at the first, if you haven't seen this before, because I'm kind of clicking around, and it's like, well, how did he get here? But this is a configuration screen for the approval process, the task process for the approval mechanism. Wow, that was a mangled sentence. But I think you understood. So I can do so many things here. I can change the completion conditions for this task process. You know, how do I know when I'm doing this task or this set of tasks? Change the behavior of a single task. How does a task get created? What do I do when a task gets created? I can write to the log. I'm basically handling events. Task is created, it's completed. I can write to the log. I can send people emails. I can do all kinds of things. And behavior of the overall task process. So when the task process starts, when it ends, a task gets deleted, I can manage all this stuff. And just to overwhelm you a little bit more, I'm just going to click on one of these, and I get some more stuff. And I go back and I click on this, and I can get a bunch of stuff. Look at all this. So this block is before a task is assigned, when a task is pending, when a task expires, and there's little helpers here that kind of tell you what this means. You run these actions every time an individual task is past its due date. I can send an email, or I can maybe just expire the task. That person lost their chance to participate. They waited too long. Or I could escalate to another user. I could do any number of things. But this is this task process. None of which you had in 2007. You didn't have the ability to manage tasks at this in 2007 in SharePoint Designer. You did in Visual Studio, but not as easily.
Can you create custom events when a task is not a certain place? For example, when a task is complete, but you want when a task is something custom. Can you do that?
I guess give me an example.
I can't think of an example, but let's say if task wasn't out of the box, you didn't have that as an option, but you wanted to create one.
Do something like.
I have an example.
Yes.
We have a process right now we're working on. A request comes in and somebody else altogether, a couple of people send that on to each for a comment, and that comment has to come back within 48 hours or 24 hours. So it would kind of be nice can we set an alarm zone to say, well, they haven't answered that within that 48
Sure,
hours?
yeah.
And it would send them another email then?
Sure, absolutely. And that's kind of what this already does. So I can say, go to this, and once you're in here doing these things, you can do one of a number of things. You could start by using box approval workflow, which really only has one activity, these task approval activity, but it's heavily configured. So you could start with that and just tweak, which is what a lot of people would want to do, rather than, because if I go in and add one of these, which is called start a custom task process, which is essentially the same as this, but it's not pre-configured. All of these things are just blank. There's a lot. I mean, you don't want to come in here and really fill all this out unless you really need a lot of type control. So you can see you'd have a lot of stuff to do, a lot of typing and configuring. Whereas the pre-configured ones, you can go ahead and delete this guy and go back in here. The pre-configured ones have a bunch of stuff already. So yeah, I could say, let's see. Well, first of all, when a task expires, I'm already sending an email notification and I can pick whoever I want to email it to. And all that would require of me is making sure I appropriately set the due date. So I can say the due date is right now plus 48 hours, and then I could email everyone in the whole company if Susie Joe isn't doing her job. And then I can even define when a task is deleted. That's one thing a lot of people forget. It's like, well, what if someone deletes their task? What does that mean? Now the task is just gone and nothing, workflow's in limbo. You can manage that and appropriately act. So, I'm not sure I answered your question, though.
No, that's fine. We can talk about it later.
Okay. I can have task outcomes. So in an approval workflow, obvious outcomes would be approved or rejected. But I don't know, it could be more states. I could have one of 5 choices, and each person can choose, each participant in this task process. And by the way, task process can orchestrate the participation of 5 people or 6 people, whatever, in parallel or in serial mode to gather this information from users.
Can we go back to the change behavior of single task?
Yes.
I think I thought of one. Assign, pending, expires, down, or is that it?
Yep, there's when it's deleted and when it completes.
Okay. Let's say the task was altered and the task had additional step or something. So you say when it was altered, for example. Can you create custom actions based upon a custom expression, if you will, or the outcome of the lock level? Did that make sense? Like if a task said email, but you wanted to, instead of email or in addition to email, you wanted to write a file, but that task altered, and then you want to email somebody's manager that says the task was altered.
Just if someone came in and maybe changed the percentage complete that they were done with the task,
Exactly.
they're not.
I'm just asking if it's configurable. Can you create an action or a condition?
So something like writing a file. Is that
There's not asking an action. These are task behaviors, but you're saying when a task is pending. But what if a task was altered? In other words, a task complete, but it was changed. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Create your custom, expression or something along the line.
I'm not sure that you can do that. I'm not sure that there's it would be right here. There'd be something that says when task changed, right? Which, one of them would be deleted or complete. I guess there's not a, when the task was just changed, right? Like, I don't know what you would change.
I'm using that as an example,
Sure.
but I'm sure people that are using will come up with their own concepts and ideas of when something is pending or signed.
Oh, so you're saying, can I add another event in here?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, this is not, there's not a way to add new, when it's changed events. These are all baked in.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I think it took me a second to kind of get what you're saying. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, my terminology was off.
No, that's okay. My brain is also slow.
Write another activity.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you can write, as if you have developers, you can write custom actions, like just writing a file, or calling a web service, or calling the CRM system, creating a customer. You can write custom actions for SharePoint Designer workflows, which are, and that would be done in C# or in .NET essentially. And then those activities can either be used in workflows or Designer, but if you can use them in Designer, there's a little extra packaging that needs to occur to kind of get how does it appear in the Designer? What's the verbiage that appears? What parameters are for the user? Those kinds of things. So it's actually not that difficult to write workflow actions. And there's actually some out on, if you go and look at CodePlex, just Google SharePoint Designer activity. You'll find a bunch that people have written on CodePlex to get ideas for what other kind of things you can do. Let me go back over here. So I forgot what we were going to do in here. What was the impetus for coming in and doing the new iron workflow? Do you remember, man? So, shoot.
Were you going to create that one from scratch?
Yes.
Look like what we did in Visio?
Well,
You did a hard version?
yeah, I can't recall exactly what I wanted to show you, but we can just start going through here and maybe an approval process needs to occur on a candidate. So I can just start by typing approval, and I can see it says 4 results, press enter to view, and then I get the so I'm going to arrow down to start approval process, which is again something very similar to what we've been looking at. So I'm going to assign this just to myself. And I can do, if I have more than one user, I can choose one at a time, or remember this is where I can orchestrate to multiple users.
Go to a group and use a
Oh yeah.
distribution list.
Absolutely. And I can have it break those apart. Like if there's 20 people in that, I can break it apart to where each person gets a task, or where the whole group gets a task and the first person that comes in and does it wins. You can do it either way.